Good evening. Thank you for joining our series of conversations on mental health offered by the Sioux Falls School District with experts from Avera. Tonight we'll focus on the topic of anxiety and depression. Feeling worried and sad sometimes is a natural part of growing up, but sometimes these feelings can overwhelm a child or youth, keeping them from functioning well at home or at school. Especially coming out of the pandemic, cases of anxiety and depression have risen in almost all age groups. Last year, Avera and the Sioux Falls School District created some helpful tools in addressing anxiety and depression early with grade school, middle school, and high school age children. Tonight, we'll share some helpful advice on warning signs, how to address, and the levels of care available. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. James Nold, Assistant Superintendent, to offer a welcome.
Good evening, and on behalf of the Sioux Falls School District, I want to again welcome you to this 9-part presentation that is titled the Family Forum Series. Before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to thank Avera and their partnership with us, the Sioux Falls School District, in providing this service for our families. It is truly appreciated, and we greatly appreciate the partnership we have with them. Families, you are welcome to join us on the third Tuesday of each month to hear information on a variety of topics that are intended to strengthen and support our families. You will also gain knowledge on resources that exist right here in our community that may provide help for you or your family. And now, I look forward to hearing from our presenter, and please do not hesitate to provide us feedback on the Sioux Falls School District Let's Talk app that can be found on the Sioux Falls School District website. Thank you again, and now back to Ms. Myers to introduce this evening's presenter.
Thank you, Dr. Nold. We will now move to the presentation. This session will be recorded and placed on the school district's website if you want to reference this information later. We will not be taking live questions during the session, but we'll leave some time at the end if we have it to address some of our top concerns we hear from parents. Tonight's program will be presented by Nicole Olson. Nicole is a counselor at Avera Medical Group Behavioral Health Clinic in Sioux Falls. Welcome, Nicole, and thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome. Tonight we're going to talk, I'm Nicole Olson. I am a counselor at Avera Outpatient Behavioral Health. Tonight we're going to be discussing how to talk to your kids about anxiety. So, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force recommends that primary care doctors screen all children ages 8 to 18 for anxiety, regardless of whether or not they are showing symptoms. This is the first time the panel of medical experts has given this guidance. So this is the first time in history that they have started guiding this for the ages of 8 through 18. It also reaffirmed that children ages 12 to 18 should be screened for depression, and it has given guidance on this than it has in more often now than it has in previous years, From 2016 to 2019, some 2.8 to 5.7 million children were diagnosed with anxiety and depression. This is according to data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Tonight, we're going to discuss some objectives, including understanding how anxiety presents itself in kids and teens, understanding and recognizing the types of anxiety and symptoms, and learning how anxiety is treated in kids and teens, as well as identify some of the symptoms of anxiety and prioritize help for mental health among our kids. So where does anxiety come from? Mental health challenges and anxiety may come about as a reaction to environmental stressors. This can include trauma, the death of a loved one, school issues, and experiencing bullying. All these factors and more can lead to anxiety in kids and adolescents. Noticing changes in children and teens is crucial, as symptoms of most mental health challenges start before the age of 25. It's critical to address these concerns as soon as possible. The quicker we address the problem, the better chance a young person can return to everyday activities. So what's anxiety? Anxiety is when worry leads to feeling out of control and a sense of vulnerability. The sympathetic nervous system fight or flight kicks in. This often leads to physical symptoms such as rapid heart rate, muscle tension, sweaty hands, butterflies in the stomach, and difficulty concentrating. What does anxiety want? Anxiety wants comfort and certainty. People will worry less if they learn to tolerate uncertainty and manage the discomfort that comes with it. So how do we tell if our kid or teen has anxiety? So I talked about these a minute ago, but some of the physical symptoms of anxiety include these: consistent stomachache or headaches, racing heart, shortness of breath, gastrointestinal issues, including but not limited to nausea and vomiting, irritability, and they get easily agitated, sleeping too little, having frequent nightmares, low energy, constantly moving or being able to sit still, frequent tantrums. Emotional and behavioral symptoms may include things like constantly discussing fears and worries, spending increased time alone or avoiding social events, worsening educational performance, including skipping classes or the school day altogether. Anxiety disorders have the potential to affect every part of a young person's life, including their physical health, emotional well-being, and social skills development. The combined impact can lead to kids feeling socially isolated, stigmatized, and incapable of being active members of their community. Mental health has a direct relationship with a child's physical health. Both physical and mental health influence how children think, feel, and act on both the inside and out. Anxiety can develop for your children at any time. Anxiety is the most common mental health disorder. It affects millions of young people in the United States. Anxiety disorders are often exhibited as excessive worry about daily events or activities. So excessively worrying about work or homework or school friends or activities. That occurs more frequently than interferes with educational, occupational, and or social lives. How common is anxiety in young people? Research done by the National Research Council and Institute of Medicine revealed that an estimated 32% of adolescents living in the United States has experienced anxiety disorder. Although anxiety disorders occur more often in females than males, age, ethnicity, and geographic location play a role in who develops anxiety. Unfortunately, only 7% of our young people who need mental health get it. Understanding anxiety. Research done by the National Research Council and Institute of Medicine revealed that an estimated 32% of adolescents living in the U.S. experience an anxiety disorder. Did I read this already? Yes, I did read this already, so we're going to skip that part. Anxiety, not all anxiety is the same, so this is good to know. Anxiety is the body's normal stress response. However, children who struggle with clinical anxiety encounter interference in their daily, social, academic, or home lives. Though anxiety is a universal emotional experience, excessive anxiety can indicate there's a problem that needs to be addressed. So it's good to have a little bit of anxiety, but a lot of anxiety needs to be addressed because it can really inhibit your child from doing the things that they love. It can be difficult to determine the type of anxiety someone is experiencing. Some anxieties are short-lived and situational, while others are sudden and inexplicable. Learning the difference between stress, fear, uncertainty, panic, and social anxiety can help with understanding someone's anxiety signs and symptoms. So what's the difference between stress and anxiety? Stress, like anxiety, is an emotional response. Stress is usually created by an external trigger, like taking an exam or getting into a fight with a friend. Anxiety, on the other hand, can be internally created fear that seems to take on a life of its own. Both have similar set of symptoms. They can feel like fatigue, they can have difficulty concentrating, they can be anger or irritable, they can struggle with sleep. But unlike stress, clinical anxiety is not short-term and does not go away after the stressor is taken away. Oftentimes people will say to me that for anxiety, the difference between stress and anxiety is that anxiety seems to come from nowhere. It feels like, for kids, it feels like they don't know what's causing it. So if you think about it like this, stress, they might be stressed that they have a test. Anxiety, they're like, you might say, what's going on? I don't know. Fear versus anxiety. So fear is an emotional response to a real or perceived threat. Anxiety is the anticipation of a future threat. People also use the word anxiety to describe lingering nervousness or a constant sense of tension or worry. Okay? So anxious individuals tend to have an intolerance for uncertainty. So that's what's kind of going on. When they say they don't know, that can often lead to increased anxiety. Sometimes people with anxiety call this the fear of the unknown. Those who chronically worry equate uncertainty with bad outcomes. To lower the risk of a future threat, people with anxiety may try to minimize the number of uncertain situations they encounter. This avoidance strengthens anxiety in the long run. What happens is people will say, like, I don't know what's going to happen if I go there or do that, so I'm just going to avoid it altogether, which then in that, anxiety kind of wins and it will take over. All right, managing anxiety. Adults can help by using the 3 E's. Expect it. Worry is always going to show up. Trying to eliminate it can backfire. So we want to encourage our kids to recognize that sometimes anxiety or worry will happen, but we can actively manage it and exercise some control over it. Right? So telling your kid, like, don't worry about it, that's not always the best. You want to recognize that, yeah, we all have worry at some time. Externalize it, step back and learn to recognize it. How do you feel when you're anxious? How do you feel when you have worry? What's going on? What are you thinking about? How's your body feel? Experiment. When worry shows up, do the opposite of what it demands. This helps create a new neural pathway and helps form new patterns. So if it's telling you, that you don't want to go, maybe you want to try it out for at least a little bit and go there. Okay, so the cycle of anxiety starts like this. An anxiety-producing situation leads to uncomfortable symptoms such as worry, fear, and a racing heart, sweating, or feeling of being overwhelmed. And those are just a start of some of the symptoms. Avoidance. Uncomfortable symptoms are controlled by avoiding the anxiety-producing situation. So example of avoidance may include things like skipping classes, to avoid giving a presentation, using a substance, drugs, or alcohol to help numb those feelings of anxiety, or procrastinating on challenging tasks. Short-term relief from anxiety. Avoidance of the anxiety-producing situation gives an immediate sense of relief. The symptoms of anxiety lessen, but only temporary. So if you have a huge mess to clean up and you're anxious about getting started or don't want to get started because you don't know where to start and it makes you feel anxious, and you're like, well, I'll just do it later. That's a short-term relief. Long-term anxiety, though, long-term anxiety growth, the fear that initially led to the avoidance worsens. So what happens is then the brain learns that when anxiety-producing situation is avoided, the symptoms go away. So as a result, the symptoms of anxiety will be worse the next time, and avoidance is more likely. So the more we do it, the more it's expected. All right. I'm managing anxiety for the elementary kiddo, or the school tip sheet. What can you say to your children that are dealing with anxiety? I care about you. It's okay to make mistakes. Do you like to draw? Let's draw what your worry is doing or saying. We can work at one task at a time. How can I help you How can I help you problem solve? What do you need? What do you need right now? Sometimes when I feel like I have a stomachache or when my face gets red, that's how I know when I'm anxious. Let's practice doing something to help you reboot. So doing something to change that kind of feeling, like this is called like distancing from the anxiety. So if you change something, get out of the space where you're anxious, model some things for your kid like jumping jacks or doing a breathing exercise or wiggling your body or going outside. All of these things can kind of cut that anxiety because there's a chance of hearing pace. Talk with your teacher or parent or the school nurse if you feel like your child needs additional support. So as a parent, you're going to want to talk with your teacher if you notice your child's teacher if you notice they're having anxiety, or speak out with the school nurse and see what they can do to help facilitate some of those things. Managing anxiety middle school tip sheet. Okay, so how to help. Remain calm. Don't ask them to be calm, but instead model calm. Okay? Be consistent with your supportive messages. Acknowledge anxiety. Normalize uncertainty and discomfort as part of learning. This is something we all go through. This too shall pass. Examples of what to say to your children that have anxiety. I care about you. These are more of the same, but when I get anxious, I take the time to reboot. Something that works for me is taking deep breaths. The middle schooler can follow your breath. If you show them how to take deep breaths, they can follow along with that. Of course, you're feeling nervous. I totally understand that. Providing validation and empathy is a way for them to know that you're listening or you hear them. You have a headache and you're feeling nervous. I am thankful that you told me and you are able to recognize those symptoms and feelings. Is there anything that you've tried previously that helps you? So recognizing that you know how they're feeling, you hear what they're saying about how they're feeling, and asking them if they have tried something in the past that works for them. You can also refer to their school nurse if this is the first time for that particular symptom. So if this is the first time they started feeling this way, refer to the nurse to see if there's something else going on. Encouragement. That's a great way to reboot so we can move forward. Building skills by showing different options such as exercises, jump jacks, wiggling, different things, okay? Of course you feel that. I totally understand that. Changing how you feel is possible. So offering hope, letting them know that there is things that can be done for them. And saying things like, I don't expect you to be perfect, so let's talk about this anxiety that you feel. Just let them know that, like, it's okay to not feel okay. You may feel uncomfortable, you felt this way before, and you got through it. Let's talk about what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't. Letting your student or kiddo know that, like, this will pass is a good way to help them deal with it in the now. All right, high schoolers, teenagers with anxiety, tips for parents. All right, so routine is good, but so is learning flexibility. Discuss and model being flexible whenever possible. Encourage social interaction by decreasing screen time. I know that's easier said than done. Normalize the discomfort and judgment as we step into a variety of social situations. So if your teen's feeling anxious in a social situation, let them know that that's okay. That's normal to feel that. Talk about stress being normal. People need to go through uncertainty and discomfort and know there is caring adult available for support. So letting them know that you're here for them, that, like, they don't have to do this alone. Help them understand the universal process of change and how it promotes flexibility and resilience. So when we overcome something or we change something, we grow and we learn. One of the most important keys is kids learn how to deal with stress from parents. So modeling calmness might be a help tip. So we always learn by example. So the way that you can show your child to be calm or how to deep breathe is by doing it yourself. Practice those relaxation exercises, deep breathing, stretching, anything that works for them. Remind teens about taking a pausing moment, a moment to gather myself. Take a step back, take a deep breath, take a minute to pause and think. Practice those experiments in the classroom. Tell teens that anxiety can show itself in physical ways. So headaches, racing heart, stomach aches, all those things we talked about before, those are ways that anxiety can present itself. Just be in the moment. Just take a moment to feel, with your teen and show them how to be. Where are you? What are you doing right now? What's going on? Those things are like ways to help them assess how they are feeling and also how to, like, stay in the moment that they're in. So some of the coping skills, these are for everyone, but there's so many more, and it's important to find what really works good for you. Okay, so again, take a deep breath, go for a walk, watch wildlife. So just even like looking out the window for a little bit, color or draw, write a compliment list, listen to music, take a time out, read, stretch out, write down your thoughts in a journal. Read some positive affirmations. Go outside. Use a fidget toy. Talk to a friend. There's a lot more that we could go over. And sometimes it takes a couple of different tries or a couple of different ways of doing something to kind of figure out what works for you. And that's okay. How to get help. When should I seek help? If you think that your child or teen is being avoided or extremely distressed, it's important to seek help and assist with identifying the problem and developing successful coping strategies. The sooner you seek care for your young person, the better chance they have for positive outcomes. If you think your child or adolescent needs help, please reach out to a professional counselor, their primary care physician, or a local mental health provider. This next slide just has some good places to help in crisis. As many of you are aware, the new suicide hotline number is 988. That's universal. 211 Helpline Center has a lot of information on all various number of topics. You can reach somebody at Avera Behavioral Health Assessment. There's the link. And these are just a few. And the Avera Behavioral Outpatient can help direct or guide you to help or assist you in any way as well. So that's all I have for you tonight. It's a very, very brief overview of anxiety overall, but if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you can, I guess, relate those to Dr. Knoll, and we will kind of go from there. Thanks for listening to me.
Ms. Olson, first and foremost, thank you for your presentation this evening. It is greatly appreciated, the information that you've shared with us. We do have just a couple questions here for you, if you're able to share a little bit more time with us.
Sure.
The first of which, COVID has impacted all of our lives. Do you have any tips for families for healing from this experience, of the missed experiences they've had, the isolation, the change in management that they may have with their family, but any advice on that?
Yeah, you're right. COVID has made, I think we're finding has made a bigger difference in people's lives than we originally even thought. A lot of kids missed things during COVID. They missed important activities at school. They missed things, being with their friends. They, got left out of different things that they maybe had planned on doing, or maybe they started, college, and that first year was like some of that isolation time. So there's a lot of things going on there. The best way to address any of this type of stuff is to ask. Just ask. If you notice something's going on with your kiddo, ask them what's going on. Children, they change dramatically over time. So the symptoms that I kind of went over tonight, and then even more, look and see if there's different changes in your kiddo. What are normal and what aren't normal? How do you know what is normal after a pandemic, really? Talk to other parents. Talk to their teacher. Reach out for help. Ask them, how are you feeling? Be willing to hear the answer. So sometimes we ask people questions, we ask how they're feeling, but we've already got locked and loaded what we want to say back. That's not what we want to do. We want to listen to our kids. If they're struggling and we're there for them, they're going to let us know in some way. And that's really, really important that you're hearing. Hearing is the most important part of listening.
Very good. One final question here for you this evening.
You bet.
Children, they change dynamically over time. We all know that in the education field. How can parents identify what changes seem to be normal and what to address with their children in regards to anxiety and depression? So as they change over that time, what seems to be just some normal parts of adolescence going through, and what are areas that maybe they should identify and seek out maybe some assistance or to take special notice of?
Yeah, you're right. And I said that too. Kids are changing. This is like pivotal time in their life where they're kind of exploring a little bit of everything. Kids, teens in particular, are looking at like, how do I fit into this world that I'm in, right? Like, what is my identity? They have an identity at home, they have an identity at school, they have an identity with their friends, and they're trying to manage those and figure out a way that they do fit into this world. So, remind them that like it's okay to explore with different things. Remember that they're going to have different moods. That's just part of being a kiddo. If you're going to address things and you think that they're suffering with anxiety and depression, again, ask them, listen to what they're saying. Take an honest look at what they're doing. Are they isolating? What's their body language telling you? Are they irritable? Are you noticing changes in their grades? Has somebody called your attention? What's normal? What's to say what's normal for a teenager, right? Talk to other parents. Go to their extracurricular activities. Watch their social interactions. See what is actually going on in their life. Also remember that this is really important. Remember that things that kids are going through now are not the same things that we went through as an adult. This is a different time, and that's really important to notice and realize. Kids care about different things that we cared about. Sometimes we think what we think is important isn't necessarily what they think is important. It's really a good idea to just create a safe space for your kid or teen to come and be able to talk to you about these things.
Very good. We again thank you for being here with us this morning. And a couple more things that I'll just put out there for parents is within the Sioux Falls School District and really any school district, there are so many resources. And all you need to do is really reach out to that counselor, that school counselor, the school administrator, and they'll get you in touch with those. Many of the things we can provide you right within the schools, and you can access those right in the school. But some of those things, we also have partnerships like with Avera and other agencies within the Sioux Falls area that we can match you up with and make sure that your son or daughter gets that support and help that they need. So anytime you have questions like that, make sure that you do reach out to a school counselor or school administrator, and they will help you through that process.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending tonight's session on anxiety, and thank you to Nicole and Dr. Nold. This session will be added to the Sioux Falls School District's website. It'll be under the counseling area. And don't miss our next session. It will focus on digital media, things to consider for parents, how to help your child stay mentally resilient in a digital world. This will be presented on November 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. So log in. Information will be under the counseling services area again. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.